Hey guys, welcome back to Cocky Gachas, and in this video I'm going to touch on the brand new guild rate that dropped with this new update. And honestly, my apologies for not uploading this earlier, but I was spending time to find out what exactly we can do to min-max the damage right for this guild rate stage itself. And you can see my guild is on Charite Trial Stage 1. Honestly, the guild is not very competitive, but I don't really care because my aim is just to get top 100, and I do think my guild has a chance. So we're going to dive straight in, and I'm going to give you guys the useful tips on how you can maximize your damage. And first things first, we touch on the skills, and that is important because it also ties into the mechanics of the whale itself. So right here you can see the main skill is Beam of Destruction. So there will be a energy bar later you'll see in the footage whereby it charges up, and once it goes to max, the whale will use Beam of Destruction, and this is the skill that does the most damage because it hits all your enemies and reduces their magic resistance by 30%, cannot be dodged. So this is very important skill to note, and that's also why healers are important, but later on I'll touch on a mechanic that can bypass that. Next is Absorb Energies for Absorption. Absorbs energies from enemies, so with the most HP, meaning usually your tank, right, decreasing target HP by 75%, almost 1 hit kill, and stunning a target for 8 seconds while restoring her own mana by 5,000. This will cancel out if the target has a barrier, and she will lose all her mana. This is very important mechanic because if you can bypass this mechanic and make the whale lose all her mana, then the whale will not use Beam of Destruction. That is one thing to note. And then the bombardment is just AoE damage. Charge is also AoE damage. I don't think this is very important. So we are going to go straight in. The first things I want to touch on is the treasure itself. So for the treasure, although the patch notes mention that we cannot use duplicate from the same group, I think as of now there is a bug or something, I'm not too sure, but I've been using the same group, and I've been using like the human-like, beast-like, as well as undead, because the fact is survivability is a very huge factor when it comes to this guild rate itself, when it comes to the later stages, right? Earlier stages you don't need survivability, but if you are on later stages, 40 and above, I think trial stage 1 and above, very insanely high DPS is going to come your way. So to maximize it, I prefer to go with full faction teams, or maybe like at least four faction teams, so that you can get the HP bonus, right? That's very important. And for this itself, you can repeat. So I would just prefer going with all these treasures, unless they were to patch it later on to fix this so-called bug, right? Then we would be able to utilize the rest. And I've tried like Master Killer Armor, instantly kills everyone, so don't use this. Even for my undead team, I did not use the dot. But if you're on a dot team, probably you can try this, but I still prefer the undead plus 30% bonus for my setup itself. But now, anyways, that's the first thing gone. The second thing I want to touch on is the formation. So all the units is not important yet. Formation is very important when it comes to this because it has the multipliers, especially when it comes to defense plus HP for the front row. So you guys might think that you always want the DPS in the back row, but that is not true. So if you have a DPS that is range DPS, and one of like the weaknesses of this whole like guild rate itself for range units is that they are very susceptible to dying. Even if you have healers, they might still die if they're not highly ascended. So what I would suggest is, if you really can't survive, just put the attacking units, right, the range units on the front row. But as much as possible, I would try to avoid having the range units unless they are of super high ascension. If you have like Origin and then you have them over leveled past level 200, then very good for you. You can probably put them at the back, and then if you have a lot of healers to sustain, you can do so as well. So that is another tip when it comes to formation, very important. This one very crucial that I want to re-emphasize again. Now the next thing I want to touch on is to single out the best units for this guild rate itself. Although team building is very important, but the stages would determine how your team line up, because as you progress to the like further stages, you can't use the same exact team, given that the survivability requirements would change constantly. So I would just suggest individual best units for you guys, so this will be better for you to adapt based on what stages you are on. No exact lineup per se. So first things first, of course, the best one I would say is Catherine. Catherine is like MVP in this one because look at her skills right here. We go into the description, you can see this one gives a shield. Gloria gives a shield, and her ultimate heals the whole team and also gives shield. Like I mentioned, shields are very important. You need to have a Catherine in one of your teams, otherwise you might struggle a bit. And another one of this MVP units would be Siha, and the reason why she is good is of course with the same reason why Catherine is good, is because she gives AoE shield, and the shield comes from her Happy Life performance with Mika. So Mika, Siha together, and from here you can see that there is no shield, right? But when you go to the artifact, you'll be able to see her recent buffs actually gave her a shield effect for all the allies within range when she's doing the happy life performance. So this is something very important. On top of that as well is because healing or healers are more important in the later chapters and the later stages. So I would really suggest for Siha to be put on one of your teams as well, because she gives this shield effect very much. Petra is also a great unit because of her sub skill, and it gives her shield, and I'm going to repeat time and time again, shield is super important. And also Petra decreases the attack of enemies within 2.5 meters, right? So survivability, having shield is utmost important. If you have no shield on your team, you can pretty much just say goodbye if you are on one of the later stages. Earlier stages, you can ignore that mechanic, doesn't matter, but once you go to later stages, if you don't have shield, just give up, right? There's no point, because the ultimate is the main skill of the opponent is going to probably just wipe out your team. So needless to say, Claire also for the same reason having shield. So anything with shield, pretty much you are just going to be wanting them on your team, but you want to try your best to spread them out, right? As for the damage dealer, I would suggest going with single target DPS such as Lindsay. Haru is also very good, depending on whether she can survive, right? Survivability is important, so if you can make her survive, then it's very good. And also Talia on the survivability, and what Talia does is that she is able to keep your backline safe. So if you really want to feel like a DPS such as Vivi, you want to put like a Honglan, maybe you need Talia to support her. But honestly, I would say that on the later trial stages, you probably originally can't even survive, right? Even with Talia. So it really depends on how you line up your team. If you have a super strong origin units, then perhaps it can survive. But even my Honglan can't even survive before I reach the trial stages, so I doubt she's able to survive going into trial stages. So range DPS really don't recommend. If need be, put them on the front line to get more HP. But that's all for the unit side. And at this point, you might say, hey, Koki Gachas, I know that Catherine is good, right? But we can only use her one time, right? Then what about the two other battles? So for that, I would say that if you have spare Catherines, you can actually fill her multiple times. And how do you do that? Just go to the level sig and put in your spare Catherine. So look at this. I have another Epic Plus Catherine. I put her in and I use her in 2 battles. And the last one, I use Siha as my healer. So this one is very important. A tip that you really want to maximize. Oftentimes, I would say if you are whale-ish enough, right? If you are super whale and you have multiple like Claire's, Catherine's, all those nonsense units where you're super OP in the guild raid, just fill all of them multiple times. It's going to work better than you fielding other units, to be very honest, especially when we can duplicate use of the group treasures itself. So that is also one thing. And last thing to note is that I haven't mentioned this previously, but this guild boss is a beast unit. So Shara is a beast unit, so you don't want to, as much as possible, use fairy units, and the worst one you can use is probably fairy plus range, and that is why Erika is very confusing to me. Why did they release her banner at this time when the first boss is supposed to be a beast plus anti-range unit, right? I think Erika is going to be very useless here. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. If you have origin, perhaps she can work, but for most of the people that are using her at support Epic Plus, she's not going to survive at later stages. That's what I'm going to tell you. If you're on earlier stages, maybe stages 20, 30, still possible. But once you go to 40 and then the trial stages, Erika is like just worthless. So don't bother trying to fill Erika. Even Vivi as a support, I think it's very hard to fill. She's probably going to die instantly if I were to fill her in this stage itself. So try not to go for that. Humans are your best bet. Next is probably beasts and then undeads from that order. So now that we are done talking about the tips and tricks, I'm going to show you actual footage of me clearing. And this is on stage 47 or 48, I'm not too sure, I forgot. But yeah, one of those stages. And I'm using the human team. So this is probably my strongest team. Claire, Catherine, Memphi, Lindsay as well as Talia. So the unfortunate thing is that my Lindsay is not at origin, otherwise I will be able to do a lot more damage, and the Talia is here so that the Memphi can survive. You can play around, you can probably put Jiho in for extra damage on Lindsay, really depends on how you see it. But since I have origin Talia, I'm just going to put her in, otherwise I don't have any other place to fill her, right? So this is my lineup, and of course the treasure itself is the human treasure, 30% all human damage. And then going into it, you're going to see how this plays out. I'm going to touch on the mechanics very importantly. So one thing before I touch on the actual mechanics is that if you were to retry, right, it wouldn't take up your challenge, and also if you were to retreat, it wouldn't take up a challenge. So best to do it in practice, but if you want to do it in the actual challenge itself, there is no difference between that and practice for now. So going into it, you can see the main mechanic you have to take note of right here is the wide open mouth whale with a red orb, and it's this exact thing, wide open mouth with a red orb. So once she does this wide open mouth with red orb, I use my Catherine's main skill. So you save your Catherine main skill, or you save whoever can give shield at that moment to use. Why does it do so? Because once we do it, once we cancel her like wide open mouth red orb charging skill, right, she would lose all her mana, meaning that she wouldn't do the laser skill that is likely to wipe your whole team with an AoE, right? So that is very important. And here I straight up do the shield first because I'm predicting that she's going to use it anyway. So yeah, once she use it, you can just do the shield skill, right, for Catherine, and that's why Catherine is super good. And if you really miss the timing with your Catherine main skill, you can also use the Catherine ultimate to add another additional shield. But something to take note also is that sometimes due to rotation problems itself, she might not be able to use the red orb skill, right, before her blue bar, which is the energy bar, charges to full. So if that were to happen, like right here, she will instantly use her laser skill. And what can you do in this circumstances? I would use a defensive ultimate. So you have to play super flexible. You cannot always be like DPS, 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 right? Sometimes you can also intentionally delay your damage to the guild boss itself so that she wouldn't be able to charge up her energy as fast, because when you do damage, the guild boss also charge up energy. So if you want to delay, wait till the red skill comes out, right, that's when you can just use your main skills after she used her red skill, right? So you can delay your damage per se. If really comes to worst, like in this scenario, don't panic, just use your Catherine out, or use whatever like out that can tank through the laser damage. That is very important. Catherine is good because she heals plus shield, but some units only heal, right? So after the laser shoots you, you would probably have to use it after the laser hits your unit so that you are able to heal back to full, right? And you can tank through the damage. So right here, to be honest, I shouldn't have used my Catherine out anymore because honestly, I should be able to survive past these last 15 seconds, and I should have used my Lindsay out to prioritize damage. And I cannot give you the exact ultimate order that you should use. You need to really play around with it to experiment, to see how exactly you can maximize your damage for your particular lineup. But this is how I've played it. The most important thing is the red mechanic, the red orb charging mechanic, and the rest doesn't really matter. And here you can see the damage that my Lindsay has done. I think it's 1 million if I'm not wrong, and the rest also did substantial healing. Going into the second battle, this is the stage after I've soloed clear the stage previously. So this is the higher difficulty stage, and here I'm running an undead team. I do think that my undead team and my beast team are roughly around the same battle power, and for the undead team, I don't think it's as good, like as well optimized as compared to the human team. So what I'm running is Jacqueline, Prim, Catherine, Irusha, as well as the Petra itself. So I would prefer using the Petra on the backline because I want to prioritize damage, right? So I think that Petra should be able to survive regardless of what comes her way, especially with Catherine healing and invincibility-ing her, right? So the rest of things don't matter. Prim is our second healer. Without Prim, Irusha and Prim, they will both die very fast, and I think the sustain is very important. So to the later stages, I think it's important to have two healers, and of course Jacqueline is our single target DPS. Once again, quite a pity, our Jacqueline is one copy away from Origin, so no way to over level her, and we are using the undead emblem instead of the dot damage emblem, right? Because I think it's much more useful for this lineup itself. If I were to use a pure damage over time team, my team would likely not be able to survive because they are all at epic plus, and also because most of them are at range units. So I wouldn't prefer to use dot team, but from earlier chapters, maybe it's possible, earlier stages, maybe possible to use the dot itself. So for this, the good thing about Petra is that, like I mentioned, her sub skills give her shield, so she would be able to do that. And here, because the red orb charges, right, I just want to use the Catherine main skill, and once I give the shield to Petra, and everything would be fine. So you don't need to give the shield to your whole team, you just need to ensure that your highest target, right, highest HP target is shielded at the right time, whereby the whale opens her mouth and then charges the orb itself, and that would drain out all the whale's mana and she wouldn't use her laser. So you can see my team is sustaining quite well. If I remember correctly, this is stage 48 or 49, yeah, I'm not too sure, but yeah. So right here with Prim as well as Catherine, I'm able to survive, and so far I haven't used a single defensive out because my team is quite healthy, and also because I bypassed the ultimate mechanic, right, which is the main skill mechanic, so she doesn't use her main skill. The dashes can be very painful, especially on the later stages, so also make sure you have enough sustain for that. So right here, once again using Jacqueline ultimate, and then we're just going to slowly DPS down, waiting for her to use her red orb skill, right? So haven't used it yet, but she's going to use it soon, right? I'm just going to charge. Okay, and once she uses her red orb, I'm going to use my main skill on the Catherine and then bypass the mechanic. Her mana gets drained to 0. She wouldn't use her laser skill. So this is a very textbook style of clearing this raid boss itself. Just a PT, right, because most of the good units are fairy, so yeah, the fact that we can't really bring fairy unless they are super over leveled or super high ascension as PT. My fairy are not very high ascension except for maybe Chloe as well as Talia. So here this is almost wiping us out, right? And that is also where Catherine's double triple heal really comes in super handy. If need be, you should use Catherine's ultimate. So here, since I saw that the Petra would have shield, right, from the main skill, I don't really bother to click anything else, right? Just make sure she has shield. Once again, bypass the laser mechanic. Everything goes as per usual. My undead team does slightly, or rather actually a lot less damage compared to my human team. Human counters beast, right? So yeah, that's just granted that human is going to do better for this guild boss. And right here, we're just going to run down the last few seconds. And I don't know why I clicked the Catherine out. I think I misclicked. I should have clicked the Jacqueline out. So I didn't bother to just like retry again because the damage is not substantial. And you can see right here, my Jacqueline did 300k, Irusha did 277k, as well as Petra doing 100k. So on to the third battle, I have this full beast team that I'm showcasing over here. Ira, as well as Haru, Siha, Mika, both at Epic Plus, and then Honglan at Origin +1 at level 236. But the thing to note is that Honglan here is really not optimal, given the fact that I'm not able to heal her up with my lineup itself, but I don't have anyone better to like feel, right? So I already fielded Catherine 2 times, so I can't really feel anyone else. And the fact that I have already damaged like more than 50% of the damage for the stage using my undead team, I think that this stage should be able to clear the stage fully, even without changing anything. So if I were to have more like HP on the boss, I might have tried to min-max a bit more, but yeah, this is what goes. And you might think that this Honglan will survive, but she will not survive. Going into it, the treasure is the 30% beast attack. So yeah, going into the battle, you are going to see for yourself how exactly this plays out, and honestly it's not too exciting, but I do think that this team can do more damage than the undead team if I have to optimize it a bit more. So it's just a PT. I thought that my undead team would do more, and hence I ran it first, right? But as you can see here, they are doing a lot of damage, and all the Epic Plus Mika and Siha is also doing well to sustain my whole team. And given the fact that all 4 of them are melee units, they can all benefit from the heals from Siha, and the only thing that you have to concern yourself with here is that the sustain is not enough. This team is super weak. Epic Plus for like Mika, Siha, and Haru only a legendary, so really sustain is a problem. But given the fact, look at this, we generated the shield with the Mika Siha, right? So everything is totally fine here. We are able to bypass the red orb mechanic, and that is the most important thing, right? Bypassing red orb mechanic. But I think at higher trial stages, my team would die super fast, so I need to plan out another sustain. Either that or I need to find another Catherine to plop her in, right? So that she can invincibility the whole team. Otherwise, yeah, Honglan just dies here at like 30 seconds or 1 minute in, right? 1 minute in. But 1 minute in, I've already almost killed the boss, which means I've dealt almost like 600k, 700k damage. So if I have to run it full, I can probably do, I would say, upwards of 1 million damage very, very easily, even with Honglan dead. So this is just my beast team, and this is the final showcase for the guild raid itself. All 3 of my battles have been showcased to you, but exact lineups you have to tweak to your own particular account and ascension also. And that about does it for this video on the guild raid itself. I hope that you guys found found it useful and can maximize your damage after watching this. Now our guild rate is all new, fresh and dandy. It's not the only thing that came out with this update, so definitely check out this video where I touch on the flower event, on how you can maximize it for the mini game itself and get the most rewards. I'll see you guys over there. This is Corky Gachas signing off.